that? Mm-mm. All right, everybody. Welcome to Fisher's State of the City. There we go. My name is Jack Russell. I serve as President and CEO of OneZone Chamber of Commerce. Thank you all so much for being here. Fishers, Indiana has always been a place of growth and opportunity. Originally known as Fisher's Switch, our city was founded in June of 1872 when Salif Fisher divided his land into town lots. Like many towns of its time, Fishers grew around the railroad, serving as a vital connection point of trade and travel. From a small railroad stop to a nationally recognized hub of innovation, creativity, and forward-thinking leadership, Fishers has never stopped evolving. Today, we continue to build on that foundation, driving progress in business, technology, and community development. Fishers is not just a place on the map. It's a destination of doers and difference makers. We are a city that embraces bold ideas, fosters entrepreneurial spirit, and invests in transformative projects that shape the future. Whether it's launching cutting-edge business, creating vibrant public spaces, or enhancing quality of life of residents, Fishers leads with vision and action. And today you will hear from the leader of this amazing city, Mayor Scott Fadness. We are thrilled to announce that the City of Fishers has been named a 2025 OneZone Honors recipient as well, recognizing its long-standing commitment to our business community. The Honors Awards celebrates dedicated members who have demonstrated unwavering support and engagement with OneZone. The City of Fishers has played a vital role in fostering economic growth, innovation, and collaboration, making a lasting impact on our region. The award is already proudly displayed at the fireside chat table, symbolizing the city's dedication and leadership. We are excited to celebrate their well-deserved achievement. Yes. Next, this event would not be possible without the generous support of our sponsors. I want to give a special thank you to our presenting sponsor, IU Health, for their unwavering commitment to our community and its well-being. We are also grateful for our premier table sponsors, Meyer Najum, the Indy Fuel, Patch Development, Gaylor Electric, Indianapolis Airport Authority, Envoy, Edward Jones Anthony Gutwein, First Internet Bank, the Hamilton County Firefighters Local 4416, American Structure Point, and our premier table sponsor and Chairman Circle Investor Forum Credit Union. If we could give them a round of applause. So, with 650 of our closest friends, instead of a variety of announcements at the end of our program, we've added them to the beginning of our conversation here today. So please mark your calendars for the following events. On February 21st, 8 a.m. to 9:30, we'll be at the Bridgewater with Dr. Lindsay Weaver, the Commissioner of the Department of Health. February 26th, over at Iron and Ember, we have Brent Tilson, the President and CEO of Tilson HR. And join us March 5th at Fishers City Hall as we have our annual Disability Awareness Breakfast. These great events don't happen without great people, and I want to take a moment to recognize my incredible team, Cheryl, Mary, Maggie, and our Director of Events, for everybody here, Kylie, for their hard work, dedication, and passion in making today possible. If we could give them a round of applause. And I promise, Mayor, I'm not taking up all the time, but I want to make sure that most importantly, I want to thank you for being here today. Your investment in our organization fuels our mission of helping businesses and communities thrive. Your presence speaks volumes as your dedication to making Fishers the best place to live, work, and grow. And now it is my honor to welcome up Sula Banich, the Chief Operating Officer with IU Health and a OneZone board member.
All right, good afternoon and welcome to the Fisher State of the Union Luncheon. My name is Sula Banich, as Jack shared, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Chief Operations Officer supporting IU North and Fisher's campuses. On behalf of IU Health, we're proud to be the presenting sponsor of today's event, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today in this beautiful new Fisher's Event Center. At IU Health, we're committed to improving the health and well-being of the communities that we serve, supporting events like this one that brings together business leaders, community members, and local officials, all united by sharing goal of improving our community is just one way we strive to make a positive impact. Fishers is one of the greatest, fastest growing communities in the state, and as we continue to grow alongside Fishers, we're excited to be an active partner in shaping the future of this great city. And speaking of growth, if you drive by exit 210 off I-69, it's hard to miss the excitement and growth happening on the IU Health Saxony, soon-to-be IU Health Fishers campus. IU Health's Fishers Community Impact Project is growing the square footage of the IU Health Saxony campus by nearly 50% and adding standalone outpatient physician office developments in the community. The hospital expansion set to open later this fall is going to include 50 new inpatient beds, OB-GYN services, adding a Riley Children's Health Pediatric Emergency Department, doubling imaging services capabilities, new existing services and specialty programs. And the planned expansion will also include renaming of IU Health Saxony Hospital to IU Health Fishers. We look forward to continuing to work closely with our city leaders, like Mayor Fadness, to ensure that Fishers remains a great place to live, work, and raise a family. Thank you to the OneZone Chamber for having us today and for your work in continuing to foster a vibrant, healthy, and prosperous community. And with that, I'd like to direct your attention to a short video we'll watch to begin before the event happens.
My love for this city, it's not just in the streets we paved or the buildings that rise into a bustling city skyline. It's in the laughter that fills the air, the warmth of neighbors who greet each other like family, and the way our community stands together, strong and proud. We've built something special here in the heart of America, where dreams are not just imagined, but realized, where families grow, entrepreneurs thrive, and every corner, every cul-de-sac feels like home. It's all right here. Fishers is more than a city. It's a place for the future, alive with energy and opportunity, yet deeply rooted in what makes our community so unique, a spirit that never stops moving and a heart that never stops caring. For me, this city is personal. It's where I watch my own family grow, where our children are making memories together, and we greet each other just like a small town. Every time I see friends come together at a farmer's market or cut the ribbon as a new business opens its doors, I know this city is something we have all had a hand in creating. It's all right here. In many ways, Fishers is poised to be the hometown of the great Midwest migration, a place where friends and neighbors live out their dreams, take a breath, and find peace in the warmth of a community that knows how to grow together. I want to welcome you to your new event center right here in Fishers.
And now that you can see my face because I lowered the mic, I'm honored to introduce Mayor Scott Fadness, who will share the latest updates on the state of our city and the exciting things happening. Thank you all, and I hope you enjoyed today's luncheon.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Fishers Event Center. I was talking to Mitch, the guy that runs this whole place, just the other day, and I asked him, in the 2 months we've been open, how many people have graced the door? He told me we've had over 125,000 people already enjoy this facility, and we can't wait for a bustling 2025. You know, to have the Indy Fuel here, to have the Indy Ignite and the Fishers Freight team call this home is just extraordinary. In fact, in just a few short weeks, on February 22nd, we'll be on the national spotlight with the Women's Professional Volleyball All-Star Game. So I hope you guys can come out and enjoy that. So again, welcome to the Fishers Event Center. We're so proud of this, and it stands as a testament as to what we can do collectively as a community when we put our minds to it. If you would indulge me today before we talk about the current affairs and the future affairs of our city, I'd like to talk briefly about a team member of mine, Eric Pethtel. Eric Pethtel is our Public Works Director. He's been with the city of Fishers as of yesterday, 34 years, marked his anniversary. He's been my Public Works Director for the last 10 years, my entire administration. Eric's been the leader of our Public Works Department, the unsung hero, frankly, of our organization. When something needed to get done, Public Works was always called, and they always got it accomplished. I remember a time when the schools were in financial hardship, and they were talking about cutting teachers. And Eric stood up with his Department of Public Works and said, we'll take over grounds maintenance. We'll take over snow removal. We'll do that at a much reduced cost in order to ensure that we can keep teachers in the classroom. Most importantly, Eric Pethtel was my snow plowing partner for the last 10 years. Anytime we had a major snow, Eric and I would go out and plow streets. In fact, one night, I remember we were plowing in one of our godforsaken 900 cul-de-sacs. If you've ever plowed snow, cul-de-sacs are the worst. It was a really bad night, could hardly see, and Eric and I ran into each other with our vehicles. And we tore a hole in the door of his vehicle. And as we got out, we realized just the amount of grief we were about to get when we went back to the Public Works garage, where we had recently lectured our staff on taking care of the people's property. So that would be bad enough as it is. But lo and behold, we had to go to the Accident Review Board, which is a collection of police and firemen and fleet director, where we talk about how we can improve what happened, make sure it doesn't happen again. Now, I was quite certain that Eric ran into me. I was positive of it that night. So we get into this conversation, and I give my testimony, which is, unfortunately, no harm, no foul, so to speak, but Eric did run into me. And Eric was my subordinate at the time, he worked for me. And I thought that was the end of it. And the board said, well, Eric, do you have anything you'd like to share? Eric said, well, I'm not certain Scott went through all the training that was appropriate to be out there plowing snow. Completely threw me under the bus. What you may not know about Eric is that a few years ago he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And Eric has been fighting that battle, literally still doing snow removal, out plowing the streets even after that diagnosis. The physical demands of that illness have led him to believe that now it's time to retire. And that's a difficult decision for anyone. And in fact, Eric couldn't be here today. He's actually getting chemo treatments as we speak, but I know he's watching. And recently when I was at the hospital with him, we were talking about his concerns about retiring. And one of his main concerns, I think this is true for anyone, is that he was afraid people would forget all the work that he did over the last 34 years. To put things in perspective, when Eric started, his first day was a groundbreaking for Holland Park. That's how long Eric's been serving this community. Well, I heard him loud and clear about his concerns about being forgotten. So Eric, today, I wanted to let you know that we're going to rename the Fishers Public Works Complex the Eric B. Pethtel Public Works Complex in memory of all the work that you've done for the city of Fishers. So Eric, we wish you all the best. Our prayers go out for you. We love you, brother. Hang in there, and hope to see you soon again plowing with me or enjoying those grandkids. So let's get to the conversation about our city. So I marked an important date, January 1st of this year as well. I finished my 10th year in office, an entire decade. And so today, I got a little nostalgic thinking about what a decade has meant to me personally. And as I was looking through all these pictures, this one struck me. And the reason it struck me is it's a convergence of really the two obsessions of my life over the last decade. This picture, although it's a little grainy, was captured by someone at my first swearing-in ceremony. And it's my hand on the Bible, and then that little hand is my son Lincoln, my oldest son. And again, it's this convergence of the two passions of my life, my family and growing this city. At the time, I was thinking about it like, boy, today all this just seems so like, of course this was going to happen. But it sure didn't feel like that back then. I can remember a time right before this, during the election, I was at work. Things were not going well on the campaign trail. I was afraid I was going to lose. I'd never been in an election before in my life. Work was crazy. And Anna, my wife, calls me. And she says, hey, I need you to come home. And I said, well, I'm busy. I can't come home right now. She goes, I just need you to come home. I'm like, what? Did something break? Like, what do you need? This wasn't my finest moment, by the way. And she goes, no, I just need you to come home. And I said, in my moment of stress and anxiety, in the most charming fashion that I have, I said, what, are you pregnant or something? Complete silence on the phone. In that moment, I realized, oh my gosh, not only is my career changing, or could change for good or bad, but I'm going to become a dad. And so on the entire drive home, I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose this election. I'm going to have to explain to this toddler why I'm unemployed. It's going to be an awkward conversation. I get home to see Anna. She has the tests out, and she's like, oh, I'm pregnant. And I said, there will be a point in time in my life where this will be really exciting. But right now, I can't even process this. You know, back then, I was so uncertain about the future, both personally and professionally. But I was so self-assured that I was going to throw everything I had at it to try to make it into the best potential it could be. And so we fast forward to today, and that little hand is the big dude over there on, I guess would be your right. That's Lincoln. The middle guy, that's Hudson, and the one on the left hugging his middle brother is Jackson. The physical transformation of my family has been incredible, and I can't tell you how grateful I am personally to be raising, to be a parent, to be a dad in this community. I mean, a community that really cares about their families. A community where my kids get a world-class education in our school system. You know, every night, just about, I'm on the soccer field, or last night, to be honest with you, instead of prepping for this, you know where I was? I was coaching my 10-year-old's basketball team. We lost every game our first season. Last year, we were 500. This year, we're doing really well. I couldn't afford to miss a practice. But to be a father, to be a parent in a community like this has been the greatest reward of my life. It's been extraordinary. That physical transformation of my family parallels my other obsession, your city. And over the last 10 years, what an incredible transformation we've gone through. From a physical perspective, I think it's obvious to many of you that a lot has changed. This is a picture of pulling into the Old Town Hall in just 2014. Think about that, just 10 years. Here's a picture of that same viewpoint just a mere 10 years later. So I could go on and show you pictures all day about the physical transformation, but you guys feel that, you see it, you drive by it. Hopefully you enjoy it on a daily basis. So today what I'd like to do is spend a little more time peeling back the layers, because I owe it to all of you and all of our residents to be able to articulate where we've been, kind of where we are today, and then where we're going, and talk about the performance of our community. And since this is a Chamber of Commerce, I thought I would start with economic performance. how is our community doing from an economic perspective? And I'm not going to bore you with a great deal of numbers, but from my time as an intern all the way through today, I'm going to try to share with you the metrics that I think are important when we think about, is a city doing well or not? The trajectory of a city, the directionality of a city. So this was an astounding number to me. In the last decade, your community, when we think about the total value of it, the assessment of it, the total investment in it, has nearly doubled. In 2015, your assessed value was approximately $8.7 billion. Today, it is $16.1 billion. Your net assessed value would eclipse communities that you would otherwise think of would probably be our peers or more. South Bend's probably at $3.5 billion of assessed value, net assessed value. Yours is $9 billion. Evansville, probably $4 or $5 billion. Fishers, $9 billion. The amount of growth in this community has been astounding. And the gross assessed value per capita, this speaks to the fact that we didn't just grow our residential base, we grew a commercial base, which is vitally important. Why do you care about the overall value of your community? Because despite the rhetoric you might be hearing, local governments try to run efficiently, but at the end of the day, we all know, just like if you're an employer or you're running your household, the cost of goods today are different than they were 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And so if you want to hire a firefighter, if you want to keep a firefighter, if you want to hire a police officer, if you want to pave a road, those costs continue to rise. Well, if you don't continue to grow the tax base, who has to bear the burden of those costs? The individuals that are here. The costs go up on those individuals versus spreading it out over more. So the point of growth is to lessen the burden of the services that we all need to make life livable in our community. Tax rate. Just as I said, as we grow our tax base, we're able to invest in our community without putting undue burden on our individual citizens. This is a great example. Of the 10 largest cities in the state of Indiana, you have the lowest municipal tax rate of any of them. And by some, a significant margin. $2, $3, significant. 5, 6 times what you pay for services in Fishers, they pay for similar services elsewhere. And I would challenge you to say, you probably get a higher level of service. It is because of growth and efficient government that allows you to do that. Population growth. I'm astounded by this on both the macro level and micro level. I would tell you that you could break Fishers into different chapters. And we've talked about before that in the early days of Fishers growth, the vast majority of people that moved to Fishers were people that were from the four corners of Indiana. They were coming off of a farm. They were probably the first in their family to be college educated. They got a job in Indianapolis, and they decided to move to the suburbs here in Fishers. Over the last decade, people are coming from all four corners of the world. It is extraordinary when I walk around my own neighborhood and talk to my neighbors where they're coming from. I talked to a couple the other day that bought a house in Fishers, and this blows my mind too. Neither of them had a job prospect here. They were living in Texas, and they just decided, they did their research and decided that Fishers was a great place to live. They were tired of the Dallas market, just moved here. That's extraordinary. The people that are here and the people that are moving here are doing better financially. In the last 10 years, the median household income has increased nearly 40%. What is fueling that growth? Well, in large part, I'd like to think it has a lot to do with the work of Megan Baumgartner, our economic development director, and our economic development team. These are really, to me, pretty astounding numbers. In the last decade, this isn't total job growth in our city. This is job growth associated with projects that my administration and the city council have been a part of, that have actively recruited and built public-private partnerships to have them invest in our community. Now keep in mind, we're 105,000 people in our community, of which probably 35 to 40,000 of them aren't even of a working age. Yet we were still able to recruit 10,576 jobs with an average salary of $76,000 a year and a total investment of $3.3 billion. Megan, where are you at? Stand up. Will you guys all applaud Megan for her work? I know that Many of you here probably know Megan, and every one of those projects has been difficult. Every one of them has been challenging, but the reason we were able to get them done is because we had alignment. And I can't thank my city council currently and the ones in the past who said, we believe in this vision, we know where we want to go, we trust in ourselves, let's go do it. And time again, we've had great results. So let's talk about operational excellence. It's not just about economic growth, it's what are we doing as government? Are we running government well? You know, this is a singular obsession for people like myself and Elliot Hulker and our deputy mayor. We think about this all the time. How do we run government better? So let's give you a couple examples of that. Since 2015, Fishers, with even experiencing all of this growth, we have maintained the same level of employees per 1,000. That's really important. We're not a bloated or inefficient government. The total headcount for the city of Fishers in comparison to our peers, Carmel has 130 more employees than we do, and we have half as many employees as South Bend and Evansville, even though our population is now higher than South Bend and almost the same as Evansville. You know, people are our largest cost driver and they're our biggest asset. So we have to make sure that we manage that appropriately. One of the biggest cost drivers that comes with employees is healthcare costs. You know, several years ago, in 2020, 2021, we were becoming very alarmed at the rising cost of healthcare in our organization. And just like everything else we try to attempt to do, we try to think about it differently. How can we approach this differently? 10, 12, 14% increases annually in healthcare costs doesn't work when your revenue is growing at 4%. It's eating away at our ability to invest in other things that make life better and livable for our residents. So our team got real aggressive about coming up with new ideas. And we partner with Community Health on an innovative approach on procuring healthcare for our employees. And this is an astounding fact. If you look at 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025, our cost line is the bottom line. It's actually decreased. How many employers can raise their hand and say, over the last 4 years, I've seen a flat or decreased cost of healthcare? Well, we've been able to attain that. And if you were to compare that against national averages of 8 and 10% increases in healthcare costs, if you forward that going to 25, 26, 27, that could be a savings of nearly $20 million over the next 5 years. What does that mean for us? It allows us and has allowed us to invest in things that actually make life better for our residents. For instance, in the last 10 years, we rebuilt Station 91, our headquarters in the fire department, Station 93, Station 96, Station 97, added 22 new firefighters and EMS providers, implemented an EDO program, and we're cutting edge on community paramedicine. Our police department, we built a brand new police headquarters, invested in lab and forensic services, which I'll talk about here in a minute, and added 29 police officers to our community's roll call. When it comes to roads, I had to count the number of roundabouts. There's a funny story about this. So one day I was over at Carmel, and Jim Brainerd and I were walking down the street. We were going to lunch, and we were at the corner, and he stopped, and he looked up at me. And I don't mean like metaphorically. I mean we just had different height. And Jim goes, how many roundabouts you got? And I said, Jim, I don't know. He goes, how do you not know? I said, I just don't keep track of how many roundabouts we have. He said, I have 99. By the end of the year, I'm going to have 100. I'm going to have the most roundabouts of any community in the country. And I said, that's awesome, Jim. But we did build 19 roundabouts. You'd be proud of me for that fact. We also built important key corridors like 106th Street Interchange, State Road 37, the Allisonville Road widening from 116th to 131st Street, and the 116th Street and IKEA Way widening, which is obviously vitally important for projects like what you're sitting in today. The total amount of investment, which was a head scratcher for me, I couldn't believe it. In the last 10 years, we've invested $223 million in our road infrastructure here in the city of Fishers. Most importantly, thanks to our engineering department's hustle, $141 million, roughly 63% of that, came from sources outside of the taxpayers of Fishers, came from federal and state grants. But it wasn't just roads and economic development and public safety. What I'm most proud of recently is our investment in quality of life. You know, we've had a tremendous advancement in our park system. Just over the last 10 years, a 63% increase in the amount of green space here in our community. We've brought on marquee parks like Flat Fork Creek, the Agra Park, Makers Playground, Geist Waterfront Park, White River, Fishers Community Center, all coming online. Trail investments, the Nickel Plate Trail, a transformative project, Geist Greenway, all adding up to a 19% increase in our trails. And finally, the total investment in our park system over the last decade, $135 million, which is extraordinary. But keep in mind, we did all of that while keeping our tax rate reasonably flat and having the lowest tax rate of the 10 largest cities in Indiana. All this work, all this investment over the last 10 years has led not just Fishers residents, I hope, and our administration to realize the success that we've had, but also, frankly, our peers and external folks have started to recognize just how great the city of Fishers is doing. As you know, we were named Money Magazine's best place to live in America recently, and throughout the rest of this talk, if you look up on the ribbon board, you will see a variety of recognitions that we've received from a host of different locations, whether it's best places to live, whether it's safest community, best affordable small town, you name it. Fishers is now on the radar of people across this country and frankly, across this globe. Now today, what I thought would be a little bit different and maybe interesting for all of you is I talked a little bit about economic development and our pursuit of economic development. And one of the subplots that's been happening recently is our growth in life sciences. And I want to talk to you guys today, kind of pull back the curtain and talk about how we started from nothing to where we are today around life sciences. And frankly, talk to you a little bit about a call to action because we didn't do it alone. The business community partnered with the city of Fishers to get where we are today. And so with that, I'm going to ask Corey Lewis to come on up here. Corey, come on up. Corey Lewis is with Incog Pharmaceutical. Corey, good to see you. Have a seat. So, Corey, for those of you that don't know where Incog is, it's right along I-69. It's the other big building on the other side of Stevanato. Corey is a Pendleton guy, grew up in Pendleton. I got to know Corey, believe it or not, because of our entrepreneurial story. So a lot of folks knew that we were focused on entrepreneurs, that we cared about the startup industry, and I had a lawyer call me one day, and he said, hey, you've got to meet this guy. He's doing a startup. And I was used to the tech startup world where, you know, they have like a backpack and they're wearing skinny jeans and they maybe have raised 10 grand from one of their friends and, you know, they're going to build the next best software. I said, okay, well, tell me about his company. It's like, well, they're going to start with about a $50 to $100 million project and then go from there. And my jaw just hit the floor. Like, how is that a startup? So we go to the parking lot over on I-69, right, Corey? And we start pitching them on building in Fishers. And that was the first time meeting you. So Corey, tell me about how you started your company and then kind of bring it up to where we're standing in that parking lot.
Perfect. Well, first off, thanks for having me in phenomenal progress. It's amazing to see what you've done and truly look forward to the future here. But my story, 20 years in life science. I started my career at Baxter up in Chicago. My lovely wife is here today as well from Noblesville, is where she grew up. And we were living in Chicago. Ultimately, we wanted to get back to Indiana. So we said, we've got roots in Indiana, let's do it. She got a job with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and Baxter had just acquired a site down in Bloomington. So that was my entry back into Indiana. And at that stage, I was just very focused on Baxter and what we were doing at that site there. Fast forward, had the opportunity to work at Cook, also down in Bloomington. That was 2009 through 2017. That site got acquired, and ultimately in 2019, I found myself in a role that was really enjoying it, but just traveling a lot and really wanted to make a change. And that's where I took a year break, just a sabbatical, for lack of better words, to try to figure out what was next. And during that is whenever I came up with the idea to say, let's start our own contract manufacturing organization. And at that stage, I wasn't sure where to do it. I was very interested in keeping it in Indiana. I'm from Pendleton, as Scott said, so I want to figure a way to keep it here. But we looked at Texas, we looked at Colorado, we looked at Tennessee, and then this moment happened in June of 2020, where I met Megan and Scott. Doug Dayhoff, who's here with me, he was part of this meeting, and we start learning about Fishers. And admittedly, when I drove by Fishers for many years, it wasn't a big city. It was open space, and I thought, sure, let's see what Fishers has to offer. And a phenomenal job of Scott and Megan just telling us what was possible. I think we came to this meeting, we were looking at a site there at 106th Street, if I'm not mistaken. He had 3 other sites ready for us as well that we could consider, and we stepped back and said, okay, we've got some work to do. We hadn't really even started the fundraising at this stage in earnest, or at least closed on it, I should say. And ultimately, that meeting, I knew Fishers was the place, right?
So if we could take a step back, Corey, a lot of folks here probably aren't all that familiar with the life science industry in Indiana. And really even, when I first heard about life sciences, at least for the first 5 or 7 years of my career as a mayor, I just assumed it was the guys in lab coats in downtown Indianapolis, and that was the extent of life sciences. It was only in the drug development side. Can you talk about just as an industry, kind of what it is, what it means to Indiana, and then frankly, where do you fit in that puzzle?
Yeah. When you think life science in Indiana, I assume first 2 names that come are Lilly and 2 miles down the road, Roche, right? You also might expand it a little bit and think, well, wait a minute, Indiana's the ortho capital of the world. Up in Warsaw, I think 70 or 80%, I don't know the numbers, but 70, 80% of all hips and knees come out of there. Well, these stats that are on the board actually put in a whole nother perspective. What I will tell you is you also think of East Coast and West Coast as being the life science, but these 2 stats, first in pharmaceutical exports, anybody in the audience know that Indiana is the first, #1 largest exporter of pharmaceuticals of any states? I didn't know that until a couple years ago. Second in life science overall. So again, I look at this and say Indiana should be doing more. And that was the conversation I had with Scott. First was, how do we bring INCOG here? How do we find a spot? But I quickly said, Scott, you should be doing more relative to life science.
Yeah, and so this is a call to action to all you business leaders out there in other industries. In full disclosure, Megan and I knew nothing about the life science industry when Corey knocked on the door, but what we realized that we could offer to people like Corey in his industry, and I want to talk a little bit more about what you specifically do, but Fishers in the suburbs of Hamilton County, really all of central Indiana, has this unusual product mix where we had a great quality of life. We had people that knew how to make things. So there were people that were in the manufacturing industry, perhaps not necessarily life sciences, but they were in the manufacturing industry. We had the logistics to transport product all over the world, and we had land and availability to go create these things. And so when we realized that, we're like, well, we have a product that we can sell to this industry. And so Corey, when we talk about what INCOG specifically does, can you talk about what contract manufacturing is and what it means to the industry?
Yep. So contract manufacturing, if you have a drug, you go through an 8 to 12 year process, clinical trial after another, and you scale up your manufacturing. You either go build your own facility and produce your own drugs, or you would outsource it to a company like INCOG. And specifically what we're doing is we don't do the entire supply chain of making the drug substance, doing all the testing. Where we focus in on is filling the drugs into vials, syringes, and cartridges. So sterile injectables is the space. It's a 10, 12, $15 billion market. And that's what we're working on, is how do we go partner with other life science companies, other small biotech startups, to working now with I think 5 of the top 15 biopharmaceutical companies. How do we bring those individuals and those companies to us, and we'll take their drug and fill it for them, and we're making some more investments to actually take it further downstream on the packaging side.
So I want to show all of you a little bit of the progress behind this and why I think it's so important to the city of Fishers and really all of central Indiana. This was our life science corridor, or lack thereof, in 2015. We had one company that we could reasonably say was contributing to the life science industry. That was Bangs Laboratories. Fast forward to today in 2024, this is now the life science corridor in Fishers, Indiana, in your community today. Corey, I want to talk a minute about the jobs that come with industries like yours. So when we talk about INCOG or Stevanato with their incredible investment in our community, Jennison. What are the types of jobs that come with these companies?
Yeah, I mean, it's the entire gamut of, we do have folks in lab coats, but we also have manufacturing, working in clean environments. We have individuals doing inspection of the syringes to make sure that every product that goes out the door, meets the quality attributes that are required, right? We also have, traditional office jobs. We do project management, tech transfer. It's the full gamut of responsibilities. From a manufacturing perspective, again, one of the comments I made years ago is Indiana is a manufacturing state. I grew up in Pendleton. My parents worked at General Motors. I mean, certainly that auto industry has changed, but I said the call to action, the challenge I gave was, why are we not doing more in Indiana relative to manufacturing? And that's our focus, is bringing manufacturing jobs. These are clean manufacturing jobs, high tech, and lots of different varieties.
I think why it's so impactful for Central Indiana is we were once a manufacturing hub, Central Indiana. Inside the 465 Beltway, there were thousands of jobs available that paid good wages, that allowed people to own a home, that allowed people to send their kids to college. And that got decimated by automation and globalization. And now a lot of those areas are trapped in cycles of poverty. And frankly, the industry that we changed to was kind of the amateur sports capital and brought a lot of tourism and convention in, which is great. But a lot of those jobs don't necessarily free people from poverty. And so what I think is just fascinating to me is the opportunity to take something like this and really transform not only Fishers, but Central Indiana. I want to talk about your tireless ambassadorship for Fishers. So just the other night, I was at home and Corey called me from San Francisco, where he was at a conference, and he was literally tracking down a couple individuals that were interested in investing potentially in Indiana. He's like, have you talked to these guys? You need to talk to these guys. I'm going to go find these guys so that you can have a conversation with them. And that's not required of Corey to do that. But I can tell you, his fingerprints are on a number of the companies that we have on this list. And so can you talk about what motivates you to help bring these companies into your community?
Yeah, admittedly, when we started NCOG, our focus was NCOG. What we quickly realized is if we have a community, then we benefit. And what do I mean by that, right? Today, we're 235 employees. We started last year at 88, 235 now. We'll be 325 probably by end of the year. Well, guess what? As we recruit folks in, they bring spouses or partners, and those individuals are looking for places of employment as well. So as we've now seen, and it's highlighted here, when we create not just NCOG opportunities, but now trailing spouses have opportunities, that community becomes vitally important. Also too, selfishly, I look at Stevanato Group, I reference we fill drugs into vial syringes and cartridges. They've got a 500,000 square foot facility that's going to be making the glass syringes. So our supply chain just got connected, and that benefits everybody, in the ecosystem.
I think that's such a cool concept. If you think about it today, with Lilly's investment in the LEAP district in drug development, there is a scenario where drugs could be developed in Central Indiana. The glass vials that those drugs will be filled in could be made in Indiana, and then they could be filled in Indiana. That entire ecosystem could exist all right here in Central Indiana and fuel truly a transformation of our local economy going forward.
Yep.
So what do you think the impediments are for additional growth and development in this industry sector as we move forward?
Yeah, again, in the sector, it's just a function of is the larger ecosystem investing in the development, and we continue to see that broadly macro speaking. For us here in Fishers, how do we continue to have amenities like this that attract people, right? Our biggest, you said it, biggest cost and our biggest opportunity is putting the team together.
Yeah.
So if we have the opportunity to attract them to NCOG, but also now surrounded by a community that has all the stats that you just highlighted, why would you not want to come to Fishers and have employment? Why would you not want to start your next life science company in Fishers? So let's continue to build the ecosystem and figure out how you support it, both from a private sector and public, working hand in hand.
So when you we're sitting here with the Chamber of Commerce today, and a lot of business leaders here in a variety of different industries, what would your message to them be about taking an active role in creating the economy of the future for Central Indiana and being a part of that story?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I'd say probably
Talk about just your portion, the contract pharmaceutical manufacturing side of things. How big of an economy, how big of an industry is that globally or nationally today?
Yeah, again, the stats vary, but I think it's somewhere, just the filling piece is 10 to 15 billion, but the entire contract manufacturing is well north of a $200 billion market. So it's a big market, lots of potentials to play in, and obviously with market size comes job growth, et cetera.
Well, Corey, I can't thank you enough for your efforts today, and I really do challenge all of you, whether you're in banking and finance, whether you're in tech, whether you're in construction, I want you to believe to your core that you're a part of a story here in the city of Fishers and that you can play an active role in continuing to further the economy here in the city of Fishers and in Central Indiana. Megan and I, the majority of our leads on economic development do not come through traditional processes. They come through peers and relationships that we have where Corey, or just the other day, another life science leader emailed Megan and I, said, hey, I met somebody and they're looking around the state of Indiana. I told them they need to be in Fishers. People will listen to all of you in your industry more than they will listen to Megan and I. When Megan and I go out, we're paid to sell Fishers. When a peer says, you need to learn and experience what it's like to be in Fishers, we need you to come here. And oh, by the way, that's the other great benefit of what you do, Corey. The number of companies that are now being exposed to the city of Fishers. You were telling me just the other day, how many different, multi-billion-dollar companies are now flying here on a weekly basis to tour your facility?
Yeah, I mean, last week we had 4 different pharmaceutical companies, 2 arguably of the top 10 status coming from East Coast, West Coast. This week we've got quality audits that are happening. One of the reasons we chose Fishers for all the great amenities, but it included 2 hotels, included the yard at the time was there with maybe 4 or 5 restaurants. So my perspective is we're manufacturing the drug, but the customer comes to our site because they want to oversee the activities. Well, they too want to come to a safe community. They want to come and have good amenities. It's hundreds of people a year that are coming to Fishers from East Coast, West Coast, Europe, Asia Pacific, and getting a chance to see it firsthand as a result of what you've created.
Well, Corey, thanks for your time today. I greatly appreciate it. Yep. Thanks. Well, before we close out, I know people want to probably chat a little bit about what's happening next in the city of Fishers. So before we go on to 2 years, 3 years, and beyond, I just want to remind everybody that 2025 is going to be a pretty busy year here in the city. So what's coming up? We just broke ground on City View, a project in downtown Fishers near 116th Street that will transform the skyline of downtown Fishers. Sorry, David Beckert, it might block your view a little bit from your office, but what it does do is it brings an incredible group of people to downtown Fishers. This is going to be a unique product for people 55 and older. It'll be a luxury product, and what older people have that I now realize as a middle-aged man with 3 little kids, they have 2 things that I do not have. They have discretionary time, and they have discretionary money. And so the opportunity to have those folks living in our downtown, supporting our local restaurants, will be incredibly important. This project has already broke ground and is underway, and we appreciate your patience as we build this and transform the skyline once again in downtown Fishers. The much anticipated and long awaited Thompson Thrift Project, the Union, to orientate you to this project. You know where the district is. You know where Forum Credit Union is. The land in between that's been flattened out, this is what will reside there here shortly. Hopefully in the coming weeks and months they will break ground. And what is included in this project is a hotel, office space, multifamily, and several restaurants, as you can see here, that have already been announced, that will certainly add an additional vibrancy and dynamic to downtown Fishers, to the district and the arena area. Lots of news on this one. This is the Formula One headquarters at 96th Street in Hague. This project is immense. The amount of investment and the vision that the folks have for Formula One is truly incredible. This will change the trajectory of 96th Street. And we can't wait to see this open. They plan to open sometime this summer, and then there's a lot of additional development that will happen around that. I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you. I saw Mario earlier from the Indianapolis Airport Authority. None of this would have happened without the unique and innovative relationship that we have with the Airport Authority that allowed us to take land that they weren't using and turn it into something as transformative as this. So stay tuned, much more to come on this, but a very, very exciting project here in the city of Fishers. Our community center, we just rolled out memberships just the other day. We're thrilled. I just toured this the other day. This is going to be a hotbed for families of all ages to come be a part of our community at Johnson Farms at 116th Street and Hoosier Road. So where do we go from here? That's probably enough for 25. There's going to be a lot of construction, a lot of dynamic projects on the horizon. But where do we go from here? Well, 10 years ago, I stood on a stage, well, not really like this, but stood on a stage and said that we were committed to becoming a smart, vibrant, and entrepreneurial city. Nothing has changed since, and it's been our singular obsession to try to live up to those three words. And so let's talk about what we're going to pursue when it comes to each one of those concepts. When it comes to being smart, I wanted to share with you guys a little bit of the work that's underway on our public safety nuisance ordinance. I talked about this 2 years ago when we were going to roll out this plan. Well, now we have some stats coming back that tell us how has this worked. We want to be proactive. Our city council took the steps to say, you know what, you get what you tolerate. In our city, we're going to ensure it's a safe place. We're going to put legislation in place that says if you become a problem, if we're coming there multiple times for 911 calls, we want you to come work with our public safety departments to come up with a safety plan that will reduce call volumes. Well, I'm excited to say after 2 years, 65% of those in the program saw a reduction in their calls, an average reduction of 23%. Here's just a couple examples of cases that we worked on. And if you look at this, the first one, a hotel that we worked with, went from 20-some calls to 0 calls. The next one went from 160 calls a year to barely 40 calls a year. It's just incredible when public safety sits down with our business community. And I want to thank Jack Russell from the Chamber and the board. When we sat down and addressed this issue, we had their full support. And look what it's done. It's reduced the number of call volume to our public safety, making our community safer, sparing our resources, and ensuring that we can be proactive. That level of proactive legislation is what will happen next when we try to tackle the national trend of corporate landlords. This has been covered a fair bit. We talked about this a year and a half ago at the State of the City. We just rolled out last council meeting at the work session. Our intent over either this month or next month to bring an ordinance forward to the City Council that would allow us to cap no more than 10% of homes in any given neighborhood could be for rent. That still allows individual entrepreneurs, it still even allows the corporate individuals to be able to rent homes in our community. But what it doesn't allow is for someone who's spent their entire life savings on their home to walk out one day and look left and right and realize that 40% of the homes in their neighborhood are now for rent. It also protects the middle class and those people who want to own a home the opportunity to do so. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who are desperately trying to live in Fishers. Young, educated people who want to be a part of this community and want to own a home, and they're getting beat out left and right, cash offers by outside investors outside of our state. I don't think that's good for the long term. You know, my family and many families, our best way to accrue wealth generation to generation is home ownership. If we deny that to an entire class of people so that others can make more money, I don't think that's a good public policy. And so we're going to endeavor to try to implement a smart approach that will allow us to ensure that no neighborhood tips the scales into 40, 50% rental. Thank you. We're going to continue to push technology. Our law enforcement agency has become a leader not only in the state but in the country when it comes to forensic science. We have capabilities within our Fishers Police Department that no other department in the state of Indiana has, and very few have across the country. What has that led to? Just the other day I was talking to one of the officers in charge of this, and he was telling me that currently he's working on probably close to a dozen cold case files from around the state where people are bringing evidence to the city of Fishers to have it processed in the hope that we can crack the case. That level of competency and that embracing of technology is truly extraordinary. And I think you're going to hear more and more about the work of our police department in the near future. When it comes to being a vibrant community, we have a number of projects that we're excited to roll out today. In the next month or two, I will be bringing a developer forward to the City Council for consideration to finish out the vision of this entire site. So as we stand here today and I look out this way, this project would be to the south. This project would include a potential hotel, retail, townhomes, and mixed use, making this truly an urban and walkable environment. What was always intended for this entire vision. This arena is a catalyst for future development all around it. So much so that BW has announced that they're going to be building 2 buildings straight out front here on the plaza that will house probably 4 restaurants, 2 of which have signed leases and will be announced here in the near future, but we're thrilled. So as you come to a Fuel game, as you come to a volleyball game, a football game, a concert, whatever other show might be happening here, you're going to have the ability to grab a bite to eat, to enjoy entertainment and nightlife, and really between 106th Street and 116th Street, this entire area will become a city unto itself. And I'm so excited to see this come to fruition. This project will literally break ground sometime this summer, and hopefully will be up and operational by sometime midsummer next year. So this is going to be a hotbed of activity in just this area. Another great project, this one's near and dear to my heart. I'm a farm boy from North Dakota. Our Agri Park last year saw 30,000 visitors. It produced 150,000 pounds of produce. And we're going to put a country store at the Fishers Agri Park. This country store will be a consignment for farmers who want to sell their goods. So farmers market, if you think about that, the opportunity to sell those goods year round. And also will be a place for classrooms, because if you remember, every second grader in the city of Fishers visits the Agri Park multiple times a year to learn about science and agriculture. This project has been so popular that I'm excited to say today that there will be an Agri Park 2.0. In the coming days and weeks, we plan to announce an Agri Park location on the west side of Fishers, so that Fishers residents on the west side can also enjoy this incredible amenity. Just to think, 30,000 visitors to the Agri Park last year alone. So we're really excited about the integration of agriculture back into the urban environment and what that can do. We also have some really exciting announcements coming with the Indianapolis Zoo that I'm excited to share that have big partnerships with the Agri Park. Now, the arena, 10,000 jobs, all of that would tell someone that you've really made it, but nothing says you've made it like having 2 Target stores in your city. So I'm excited today to announce that there is another Target store being built in the city of Fishers. If any of you have ever tried to get into the 116th Street Target store near the Christmas time, or really any Saturday, you can know it's a very, very busy place. And so Target has filed to build a new Target, 140,000 square foot Target store, right next to our friends at IU Health. So at exit 210, there will be a new Target store coming to the city of Fishers. And I think construction is planned to be even yet this year. So I was telling my wife when she asked me about the state of the city, I'm like, you know what? I think probably the only thing people will walk away with is that we're building a new Target. But exciting project nonetheless. Entrepreneurial. It's important that our community continue to drive our economy. And I think Corey did such a great job talking about this life science industry and what it can mean, but let's talk about what it means to the city of Fishers today. Stevanato, and I know there's members here today from Stevanato, just to give you an example of what their impact is to the community. In 2021, they committed to invest $140 million and create 230 jobs in the city of Fishers. In 2022, they committed to invest $512 million and reach 515 jobs. Today, they have committed to investing $769 million and will reach a total of 701 jobs by 2032 with an average salary of $70,000. That's extraordinary. Thank you, Stevanato. And not to be outmatched on the other side of town, or I should say on the other side of the street, right, Corey? Incog Pharmaceutical has also committed to $280 million of investment and 400 jobs by the end of 2026. When you put those two together and you look at all of our life science industry, by the end of 2030 or 2032, the total investment, as we stand here today, will be $1.2 billion, 1,664 jobs with an average salary of $78,000. Thank you, that's great. I just want to remind you of that map from 2015 that showed one company. And what we've been able to accomplish in really the last 5 years is really breathtaking when it comes to the life science industry. Finally, we will never lose track of our startup community and our entrepreneurial spirit. Thanks to the leadership of David Bowling at Launch Fishers, today I'm excited to announce a new transformative partnership with Plug and Play, a national platform that will provide all kinds of networking, programming, and activity at Launch Fishers. This will provide access to all of our entrepreneurs to countless corporate partnerships, venture capital, and a pipeline into a variety of different industries like the medical device industry. There'll be more coming out in the very near future about this unique relationship, but Launch Fishers continues to be at the heart of our entrepreneurial movement, and I would say today it's probably one of the largest and longest standing entrepreneurial movements in any community in the state of Indiana. Finally, let me just close by saying, as I reflect on 10 years, I think about all the good times, the exciting projects, the big capital projects, the ribbon cuttings, the groundbreakings, all the big press releases. But I also think about all the hard times, the COVID, political unrest, cultural wars, the tragedies that befell individuals in our community, even people on my own team. And I can't tell you there's ever been a minute that I haven't been anything other than completely grateful for having had the opportunity to share in this Fisher story. And today, as I stand here today, very clear-eyed about what's before us, and I do believe to my core that collectively we can seize any opportunity before us and we can tackle any challenge that confronts us as long as we do it collectively together. So buckle up, we're just getting started. Let's see what the next 10 years brings. Thank you.